You are now tuned into the Cut Game radio show hosted by Groom City.
It's the Cut Game radio show, we let them know we stay true
To the Cut Game.
Yeah, that's how we do. It's the Cut Game radio show, we let them know we stay true
To the Cut Game.
Yeah, that's how we do. It's the Cut Game radio show, we let them know we stay true
To the Cut Game.
Yeah, that's how we do.
The Cut Game radio show hosted by Groom City.
That's how we do.
Hey, what's going on? You now tuned in to the Cut Game radio show, #1 podcast for your hair needs. I'm your host, Groom City, and right now I have the privilege to have on the phone one of my barber brothers, an amazing barber. Right now he's serving Atlanta, Georgia, but he's constantly on different flights, traveling all across the globe, all across the U.S., whether he's touring with Nas, whether he's servicing NBA players, whether he's on different movie sets, or whether he's at his shop called the Musa Lair, getting it in, just servicing his community. So today I have none other than Marcus Harvey on the Cut Game radio show. What's going on with it, Marcus?
Yeah. You gotta put like a little fake audience in there.
Oh, yeah.
Or even at least get your kids to clap or something. Like, at least get your kids. Maybe just your kids to clap.
Yeah, I got that.
Oh, I'm good, brother. How you doing?
Nah, that's what's up. That's what's up. Blessed, man. Blessed. So I got you on the phone, and I got to pick your brain, man. But before I get to that, we need the background. We need to take it all the way from the womb. Can you take us there? Where were you born?
I was born in Houston, Texas. I was my mother's only child. My father, he has 2 other boys and a girl. I'm the youngest of all of those 4. My mom raised me in Atlanta, Georgia, or actually Gwinnett County, Norcross, Georgia. It was a really good life, man. Me and my mom kicked it,
So did you grow up in the suburbs, or were you in the city?
Oh man, I was a suburban kid, bro. I call myself suburban, like literally like the first generation of suburban. Yeah. Like when your mom is hood, but like she takes you out the hood and like all your cousins are still in the hood.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And like they come up to your house and they be like, "Oh, this is nice. Y'all got stairs and stuff."
So growing up without siblings and in a suburb area, how you think that affected your childhood?
I think it actually helped my childhood because with me being the only child, like me and my mom were real close. My mom kind of like was a young. She wasn't young, but she was like in her like mid-20s. She had me, so she was still young enough to like hit stuff, and still young enough with ambition. So I was able to see her ambition, see how she continuously hustled and grinded, and really made ways for me. So I kind of like really just pulled from her, and it was kind of cool because like being an only child, it allows you to kind of be creative and allows you to always have kind of your own personal time. So you're never really afraid of being alone. So you're always cool with having to work through problems by yourself. So I think it was a very good situation because with her doing that, with me being raised by myself, it just allowed me to have have like little talks in my head, have little action figures. I was a little kid with action figures. I used to have a whole bunch of action figures, make like little movies and stuff. I was just a weird kid, but it was by myself, and I was just getting through things. So let me be creative.
Now, when you say creative, what was the first time where you knew you was creative as far as like actually creating something out of nothing?
Well, it was cool because, like I said, my mother was very young and ambitious at the time when she had me. So with her working in corporate America, like she allowed me to see how corporate situations worked. Plus, she allowed me to kind of see how how you had to kind of make your way in it if you didn't have everything at your fingertips. So she was just a hustler. Like my mom used to have like a side gig. She used to be like she would come to houses and like clean people's houses, like these old elderly people's houses and stuff like that on the weekends. So like it just kind of like I always just saw like when there was like one mishap for her, she just always was able to kind of maneuver and make it to the next wave and actually make a business out of it. So seeing her create businesses out of like seemingly some would say setbacks, I was able to kind of see how, like, you can find your niche and, your deficiencies or your situations can actually be tools to help you to success versus like hinder you from getting everywhere you want to get to. So, you know, I just saw from that, you know, seeing her example being creative, I always had it in me.
I can dig it. Now, during this time, what were you picking up from your pops?
Oh, well, the crazy thing about it is my pops lived in Houston, and me and my mom were like, you know, I was the only child. My dad was still very, 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 very involved. He's an island guy, so a West Indian, very, very hard and disciplined. Marcus, didn't I tell you to do your work today and stuff like that? Boy, it was like my dad could whoop me from 3,000 miles away, bro. It was weird. It was like he had this mind control. It was like Darth Vader type situation, but just a strong, hard-working gentleman. Like, took care of all of his kids. We saw each other during the summers, during the holidays. We were very close-knit. He's close-knit with his family. It just allowed me to see just, like, my dad literally came from St. Kitts when he was 17 years old, and moved to New York. First city he moved to was New York. Had his bags. First day he got in there, him and his homeboys. It was him and two other of his friends who actually moved to New York, and they got split up and lost each other for like the day. And just for a dude to come from like a whole nother country with a suitcase and get lost the first time you set foot on where you think you're gonna stay and where you really think you're gonna make waves happen. And like just to have your day start off like that, or your journey start off like that, and to see where he is now, he's like the head of the whole like electricians for the Houston school district. So like he's like the head guy in charge, like corporate America now. So it's like to see a guy from St. Kitts to come now and just dominate. It's just, I can't be no sucker.
Man, so that work ethic is in your bloodline. It's in your DNA, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now your pops, he from St. Kitts. Now where's your mom's from?
My mom is actually from Tennessee. She was raised in Tennessee. She was born in New York, but she was raised in Tennessee. She had kind of a tough life, too. She was a foster child, but actually got adopted by some relatives in Tennessee, which were some very strong, influential people in her life. And she was just a cool chick, she's a cool chick, man. So she was raised in Tennessee, so she still has like that country, but she's still very street savvy because she spent most of her formative years once she got out. Like when she was 12, she moved back to New York. So both formative years was in country, and the other formative years was in the city. So she was able to have a good, strong mixture of both.
How was high school?
Before I was in high school, man, like I was like I said, I was raised in Gwinnett County, and like before I even got to Tennessee and got into my high school years, that's actually when I got started into the barber industry when I was like 12. Like I said before, my first job was when I was 12 years old, and it was actually when I was like a little fat kid sweeping up the hair in the barber shop. So I was like the custodian, man. It was crazy. Like used to have me sweeping up the hair, cleaning their clippers. I was barber siding them joints. I was clipper cooling it, opening the joints up on the inside. Like I'm 12 years old, like opening these grown man's clippers, like getting the dirt, like the hair from the inside of it, like with the little blower. This is before they had like the little keyboard blowers. So I was having to dust it like a mug, and I was just like I was always a perfectionist, even at a young age. So they used to motivate me by being like, you don't want to work today. You ain't trying to work today. So it was like I was always fighting with doubt. So it was cool to know that my first job being in the barber industry, seeing that all these dope dudes were like, it was a 12-chair shop. And the great thing about it was like it was 12 different personalities. And one thing that I got to see that was consistent through all of them is that no matter who was coming through the door, like whether it be a garbage man, whether it be a lawyer, whether it be a senator, whether it be entrepreneur, whether it be an athlete, whether it be an actor, whomever it be, like they all had to kind of wait on that barber to get fresh. So it was just like cool to see like, all the different types of barbers that you still see today. The hard worker guy that's going to be there at 8 o'clock in the morning and have 2 people waiting already for him. And it's going to close it out. The guy who's, doing a little bit more extra stuff, like doing more, quality versus quantity. Then there's the person who ain't even doing no quality nor no quantity. You know what I'm saying? Just sitting in the chair, just paying movement. So I was able to see like just how there's so many different examples of, men at such an early age that I could like really get an opportunity to kind of pick which kind of man I wanted to be, or even just pick and choose some dope qualities out of all. and and make sure that I kind of apply them to myself. So like, where most would think that having siblings would be the only way that you can have some like real strong guidance. I think with me being a young man, being raised in a barbershop, kind of like helped itself in its own right, because I was able to have more of a mature brotherhood kind of teach me my ways through learning as a young man, as a young black man. So I think it put me on a great strength. So that's where it was. But from middle school in Atlanta, I was working at that shop for like 4 years. I was about to go into high school. My freshman year, my freshman summer, going into my freshman year, my mother got into a car accident and hurt her knee really bad, like shattered her knee. So we had to actually move to Tennessee with my grandmother, which is a small town in Tennessee called Morristown. It's about 35 minutes outside of Knoxville. And pretty much from freshman year of high school all the way to graduating, I went to Morristown West at first, which was only for like 1 semester. And then I transferred to the other school, which is called Morristown East, the Hurricanes. Shout out to all the Hurricanes that's going to listen to this one day. When your boy become real famous in that thing, boy. Real famous. I don't even know. They didn't even talk like that in Morristown. They talked very country.
So you graduated high school in Tennessee?
Cool. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And it was crazy because going from Atlanta, even in Gwinnett, like I said, Gwinnett, it was a suburbs, but it was like black suburbs. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like, it was just like, oh, I moved with, like Caucasian folks and didn't know, my folks or whatnot. But, being in Gwinnett County is at the time was a very diverse, like, melting pot. So there's a lot of Hispanics, a lot of blacks, some whites, a lot. So I got to see a lot of different array of people. But when I got to Morristown, it was a culture shock because it was pretty much just black, white, Hispanic, and it was just pretty much like white and a couple black folks, like 2 or 3 Hispanics. So it was just like going from that to like this type of experience, like you ain't gonna find no fly or fire barber. So, bro, that's how I really got into the game, because there was no barbers in Tennessee. When I say there was one barbershop and there was only a 2-chair barbershop, the owner of it was a drunk, and the other one was a young boy who couldn't cut yet. So they was giving everybody them smiley face lineups. Them smiley face lineups that look like that like the U cup, you know what I'm saying? Like the U, like you're throwing up the Miami U, that lineup type situation, those type of lineups, those things right there. So I really wasn't digging that. Like I said, I came from a shop that had 12 fire barbers, Now
what was the name of that
12
shop?
Fire barbers. It was called Crosscuts, man. Crosscuts in Gwinnett County. It was like right across the street from Green's Corner. Yeah.
Man.
Yes, man. Yes, sir. Green's Corner. So, yeah, man, like, so it was crazy because, like, while I was in high school, man, like I said, Knoxville was the closest town to, where I was the most, the most African-American based spot in Tennessee, pretty much. It's like, you got Nashville, you got the Memphis, you got Nashville. Yeah. And then you got, like, Knoxville. So it's like, that was, like, the closest thing that I can get to Atlanta. So, like, it would, like, be a 45-minute to an hour drive to get a haircut. So my mom only do that once a month, so I had to make that thing stretch. So, week 1, after that haircut, you fresh that week, but you're going to need to, like, clean it up. So, I started off just being tired of getting my hairline pushed back. And one day I was just like, man, to keep this really nice cut that I have. And it was, like, at the time, it was, like, the best cut that I could get in that area.
What was the cut you were wearing during this time?
Oh, I was wearing, bro, what was I wearing? I had these waves, boy. My waves spent from, like, the root. You know when the waves spin from, like, they don't even have, like, they coming out the scalp. It just looks like your head just waving, like that lineman head, that wavy lineman head.
You
That's
got that
what kind of waves I had. They came out.
You had that sharp.
No, but listen, bro. I'm on that box. I'm on them Duke boxes. That's what kind of look I got, baby. Anybody who cut my hair got me fresh, baby. So It was just like I had those waves. So I had waves with, like, ice pick sideburns. Sometimes I throw a part in there, sometimes I wouldn't. But that's how it was my freshman year. Once I started getting a little stretched out to where like I said, it was like a month between haircuts. Yeah. I kind of like started getting my mom's. The first way I started lining myself up, I got my mom's the big leg razor. I would get a bar of soap, lather my forehead up with some warm water, lather my forehead up, get a good lather, but make sure that it was thin enough so I could see where my line was going. And I would just slightly pull or just use my little leg shaver, my mom's used leg shaver. So it wasn't a sharp line, but it was sharp enough. It was way sharper than everybody else.
Yeah.
So, I did that for my freshman year, but then after my freshman year, my cousin, which was like one of my most influential cousins, bro, like he actually started getting into barbering himself and wanted to kind of like take over the barber game in Morristown. And Buddy pretty much just like was cutting, and he had these little raggedy Andis, those little brown ones with the little thin head at the top. He had those as his liners. Boy, he had them as his liners. He had them some, like, I think he had some fast feeds, I believe, and something else. And it was just a little small raggedy joint, and then had like the little light, with taking the top off the light. And that's how he was doing it. He cut my hair for that my sophomore year. But then after that, I was just like, man, he kind of got out of interest with it. And then I just kind of like started like really wanting to take control of myself and started like cutting my hair. And that's kind of how it started in high school.
Speaking of high school, I know you gave the demographics, but how was the race relationships?
It was, to be honest, man, I actually never experienced any racism in Morristown. It was crazy because it was probably like 75% white, 70% white. Maybe not, about 65% white. Maybe like, 15% of us, and then the rest was, other. That's how it was like. And but it was just kind of weird, man. It was kind of like you ever watch Friday Night Lights? That's pretty much how the town was. Friday Night Lights. That's what it was. Based all around football. And if you're nice in football, which I was, they let your boy slide. So really wasn't no racist things going on in that city. Because everybody, grew up playing ball together from like the age of 3. So everybody knew everybody.
So you graduate high school. Where'd you go from there?
Well, the crazy thing about that is before I graduated, my brother was going to Morehouse at the time, and which is in Atlanta. And I had just left, coming to Tennessee, and while he was just coming to Atlanta, so that was going to actually be the time where we were going to kind of like bond and all that good stuff. But long story short, man, he moved to Atlanta, went to Morehouse, and so I would come up, during my spring break and come check him out. My mom actually also got an opportunity to move back to Atlanta because her knee got back to being strong, but I didn't want to stay back, so I didn't want to like start over in another school, so I just stayed in Tennessee. But while I was in high school, man, like I actually did my first haircut, started picking up haircuts from there, and it was just brothers, like on the football team, and my first haircut came from this dude named, man, this is crazy, bro. my boy was just like a misfit of the city, and was never fresh. And we was like actually about to go out this one night, and I was like, bro, you know what? I can't let you go out with your boy, and you looking like that. I just got done cleanly shaping myself up with my mom's razor from her legs. I'm clean. You got to be clean yourself. So before I give you that, because I'm not going to be nasty like that, I'm going to go buy some clippers because I believe I can do it, bro. I'm going to buy some clippers. I done seen this done many times, and I'm going to cut your hair, homie. Bro, his name was Ramon Fanny. When I cut Ramon Fanny's hair, bro, his hair had never been cut. And like I said, the bar was so low in that town that anything that even a novice would do now would be like, wow, off the top rope. So like, bro, man, when I cut his hair, that was the first time I seen a client walk out proud. And not only was he walking out proud, but we was kicking it that night. So to see the amount of confidence that Buddy had because he had a fresh haircut was just like, man, I gotta cut hair. So fast forward to when my brother was in Morehouse. The crazy thing about it, like, barbering just been around my life, all my life, bro. Like, my brother just so happened to, like I said before, like, my brother was raised in California, I was raised in Atlanta, and my other brother was raised in Texas, and my sister was raised in St. Kitts. So my brother from California went to Morehouse, and crazy enough, my brother was cutting hair at Morehouse, and him and his roommate were cutting hair in Morehouse. So like my spring break, I come up, and like it gets reintroduced to me again, just like up in my face, like, man, like, you gotta cut hair. And so like his roommate was the one who was really cutting hair. My brother's roommate was the one who was really cutting hair. He was like the barber for like the Alphas on Morehouse's campus. So at that time, the Alphas had just came back. They was lit, bro. So it was just like a young, impressionable young man, just 17 years old, seeing these guys just like getting haircuts and like just being like giving all the props. Like I said back in the day, seeing how much props they would give to their barber, how they would feel like ready to attack the world. And I was like, man, I want that feeling. So fast forward to coming back, when I graduated from high school, I actually came back to Atlanta, man, and my brother was finishing up at Morehouse, and I was staying with him. And like I said, his roommate was still cutting hair at Morehouse, and so I kind of just pretty much just started watching them. Then slowly but surely, man, I just started cutting cats in my church. And from my church, it went from cutting cats in Morehouse, even though I was going to Georgia Perimeter at the time, which is a community college. My brother was on campus, so I would go on campus and cut a little bit. And then I started building clientele from there.
Now, were you using the same clippers that you used on your high school buddy?
Nah. When I first started, of course, when I came back to Atlanta, but it was crazy because I was actually, when I was going to Georgia Perimeter, my sophomore year going into the spring semester, they told me, they was like, hey, bro, listen, I don't know if you really want to come back next semester because, like, academically, you're not focused, bro. So I got put on academic probation my sophomore second semester. And so I was just like, man, I'm not going to just sit and be unproductive. Like, and my brother had been, at that time, I was still kind of doing the barbering as a hobby.
Yeah.
Really wasn't trying to, really wasn't like doing it. Like my main job at the time was actually funny as it is I was actually working in a daycare at the YMCA because I was a summer camp counselor. And during the fall, I was working as like in the daycare. It's like while people would go work out, I watched their kids and stuff like that. So it was crazy, bro. Changing diapers and all that other stuff. It was crazy, bro. Crazy, crazy. So my brother was like, man, what you gonna do? And I was like, man, I ain't gonna just sit out. He's like, yo, bro, I tell you what we should do, man. And he's like, man, we should go to barber school. And I was like, I would go to barber school, but like, I don't know. He's like, man, listen, I'll go with you. So like when he said he'd go with me, I was like, okay, heck yeah. Now, dumb as I wasn't thinking about it. Buddy in Morehouse, he can't do no barber school and Morehouse. So I'm doing all the research, trying to look into the barber schools. Really wasn't seeing a lot of barber schools that I was really fond of in Atlanta. And so I was watching TV one day because, like I said, I was on academic probation, so I had a lot of time on my hands. Mm-hmm. And right after that Barter College, commercial, you're sitting there doing nothing, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Right after that commercial came the Empire Beauty School commercial, and they like, I was like, shoot, okay, that's kind of here. So I went to an Empire, man, and then randomly, bada bing, bada boom, they were doing financial aid, so them cats let me in, and I ain't never touched a female's hair in my life.
So how was that experience being at a beauty college?
Well, it was cool. I mean, it was unique because at the time, like I said, I was really, really into the church, and I was just really, really into like order and just like trying to be very, very polished. So I think I kind of fit in with the lifestyle of being polished. So, because I would come to school, I would come to college higher school in like a church suit, all black church suit. It was a church suit, but it was all black, so I thought I was fly with it. I was like, oh, I'm sleek on these cats. It was the only suit I had, and it was the only black I had, so it kind of became like almost like an unofficial uniform, pretty much. So, it was crazy because, being the only like straight male in like a room full of like 30, 40 women, it's kind of unique. You know what I'm saying? Because you could be treated like a king at some times, and then you could be treated like everybody's baby daddy at the same time. You know what I'm saying? All in the same afternoon. And you just don't know how to kind of like react to it sometimes, but it teaches you how to really teaches you how to adapt and be really good at customer service, I believe.
Now, what one lesson?
I was a minority.
Being at Empire Beauty School, give us a story where it just stuck with you for the rest of your life. A life lesson.
Okay, I'll give you pretty much just my routine of why it was a life lesson for me. I've always kind of come up, though I've had a lot of blessings, and I would definitely never, contest the blessings that God gives me.
Yeah.
Like, as dope as those blessings be, it's like a lot of times I have to go through a lot of like random turmoil. I'm not saying that I go through more turmoil than anybody else, but like there are just a lot of instances where, you know, I would have to kind of figure my way through it. So one thing that would stand out to me was like that I learned from Empire was every morning. So my morning commute was at the time I had no car, so I would have to get up at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and at the time I lived with my mom. So this is like how you know, like, this is how far you can come. At the time I was homeless, living with my mama, right? Living with my mom in Gwinnett County again.
What year was this?
This was 2003. 2003. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 2003. When I was in school. So I'm in there 2003, and bro, like the school that I went to was like, maybe driving wise was probably like, maybe it only take like 20 minutes to get there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But because like the traffic would be crazy, or like my mom just wasn't trying to drive no grown man to no school, she just made it hard. So I would have to get up like 5 o'clock in the morning, like walk like a mile to the bus stop, right? For Marta. If I missed that bus stop, it would like literally throw my whole day off. So I would have to be there on time. Long story short, I would get there. It would take me from 5 a.m. and class started at 8, so it would take me from 5 a.m. to 8 just to get to school. Then once I got from school, I actually had a part-time job as a stylist, as an assistant. So I would do the shampoos, the relaxers, roller sets, color, shampoo, all that stuff, man. So I would go to her after school, which was like 5 o'clock. We didn't get done with her until her book would end at 7:30, which means we would get done around 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, because she's a female.
Yeah.
You know, I had to wait around for her. You know what I'm saying? Make sure that she got in the car, cool. And then she would just drop me off at the train station. So I would literally get home at like 11 o'clock at night. And it would then start the day over like that. So the lesson that it really taught me was just like, most of the time, like when you're going through whatever you're going through to get to where you're going through, it's like the small things outside are the things that really build you. Like, those are the things that really build the character. Those are the things that let you really get prepared, so that when you do come into like your, as they would say, your destiny, that you're equipped to kind of handle it. You know what I'm saying? Because like, it's not going to be all easy. It's not going to be all convenient. You're not going to be catered to, especially, you know, being barbers. You know, we're in the service industry. We're not in the industry to be served.
Yeah.
You feel me? So, you know, especially nowadays, how, you know, we kind of have gotten, you know, dope. I mean, we gotten big, you know, big in our britches too a lot of times. So like now, you know, barbers feel like, you know, we should be getting served. Oh, you follow through all these, which I don't mind cats being on their business, but sometimes it's just the tone of our business sometimes. So what that taught me when I was young, you know, when I was in Empire, was just like, remain humble in the process. You know what I'm saying? Because if you're able to remain humble in the process, you know, once the glory comes, you know, you'll still be able to remain humble in that glory, because you know how that process was.
Yeah.
And you know that process is not that far from you.
I can dig it. So you graduate Empire Beauty College. What's the first shop that you worked at?
Like I said, I was working for the young lady while I was at school, but of course, once I graduated, I really wanted to kind of get out of just being an assistant and wanted to start really trying to cut hair. This is why I initially went there. I just wanted to get more information. But the first shop that I worked at was off of Panola and Cannon Road, and it was called, you ready for this? Doing It for the Lord. Doing It for the Lord Barbershop. Doing It for the Lord Barbershop. We ain't doing it for nobody else. Not for the devil. We ain't fading for the devil. We doing it for the Lord. We fading for the Lord. Jesus need a fade. We doing it for him. Satan, heck nah. He got to get to the back of the line. But
hey,
Jesus,
you got to give us
and all
details about that environment. How was it at Doing It for the Lord?
Doing It for the Lord was owned by this deacon named, I forgot his name. I don't know why I forgot his name, because he owned a Harley Davidson, and he was like an old school, doc deacon. They mean, doc deacon, like, you young folks don't know nothing. How dare y'all be alive with y'all young selves? But was just like, he would just still say some real stuff, even though he would be a jerk about it. He would just say some real stuff, like, so it was crazy, because like his shop was in this shopping plaza, and like I said, it's called Doing It for the Lord, because he was a deacon, and he was retired, had money, long story short, this joint was just so over the top, bro. He had clothing, but not just regular clothing. He had church gear, bruh. And this is back in, like I told you, at this point, it's 2005, 2006. So this is right when the big Steve Harvey church doc pants came out. So everything is Tayon collection. You remember that Tayon collection? Everything just really, really big and exaggerated. So he had the big wide leg pants. And mind you, back then I didn't have no money. I didn't have no money to buy no clothes. So he'd be like, "You need to get your clothes right." So one day he gave me a pair of the pants that were still in this that were in the shop. And when I tell you, these joints were it was a 32 waist, but the inch was like a 30, and then the width of the pants was like a 42. So it was crazy. It was just these big old balloon pants that he would make me wear, these doc church doc pants that he would make me wear. So he was actually the first guy that kind of like got me into being a little bit more responsible, because at the time, like I said, I was just cutting my homies. So you cutting your homies, you're only cutting two haircuts. You're cutting an even and you're cutting a taper, if that. You know what I'm saying? So everything is just a variation of an even. How low are you gonna go today? It's no fades. So there's no guards needed.
Yeah.
But just the one and the O. You know what I'm saying? So that's all I had, bro. And he was like, "Now you should be ashamed of yourself, you call yourself a barber, and you ain't got not one equipment. You ain't got no combs, no clips, no nothing." And he made me actually go and like really recognize that I had none of that stuff. So I literally went down and got the rest of my equipment, because he was able to check me like that. So it was just crazy, man. Like, I hated that shop, but I loved the shop at the same time, because I learned so much. I only worked at that shop for I only literally worked at that shop for like 3 months.
Now, how many slacks did you acquire within them 3 months?
Oh, I acquired me a pretty substantial amount of unquality slacks that were untailored. So I would have to roll them up and safety pin them suckers. But I acquired me about 4 or 5 of them suckers. 2 of them were black, because you got to kind of switch them out. You don't want to wear them all the time.
Yeah.
You don't have the funky butt. You know what I'm saying? You don't have the funky butt, the itchy booty. You don't want none of that. You just want to. You can't air them things out. I ain't got no dry clean them budget.
Yeah.
So I had to spread it around.
Now, what type of clientele went to doing it for the Lord?
None. No clientele went to doing it for the Lord. That's why I left doing it for the Lord. There was nobody. Yeah, bro. Like, when I say he was the first person that I saw whose shop was oversaturated. Like, if I was able to come back and go help him with his shop, like, his shop had too much stuff. It had too much merch. It had like merch that didn't go with Barber, and it had merch that went with church. It had like it wasn't, and then it wasn't even promoted correct. It was just he had some money. He loved barbershops. He wanted to get him a barbershop. He bought him a little retail space and opened him a business to keep him busy.
Yeah.
But he really didn't care about barbering, but he cared about he didn't care about barbering.
Nah.
Yeah, man. But there was no clientele that came through that thing, bro. None, absolutely none.
So you got about 5 pair of slacks. You got your license.
Oh, I got some slacks.
And you
Yep.
you no longer working there doing it for the Lord. So what's the next shop that you went to?
The next shop I went to was Tony's Barber Salon in Atlanta, Georgia, that's where I think that most of my learning came from, for real, because it was the first shop that I went into where everybody was monsters and like everybody was professional barbers. So everybody could cut, you know what I'm saying, or had a client who liked their cuts. You feel me?
Yeah.
So it was just like, it was just the first time that I was like, wow, like these guys, this is what a haircut looks like. This is how it should be. So like, I was still taking some of the elements to kind of hide that I wasn't as skillful. I would take some of the elements that I learned from being an assistant and from being in cosmetology school with shampooing and facials and things of that nature that I was added to my clients to kind of make up for the fact that maybe your fade wasn't going to be blended correctly. Maybe there was going to be a weight line, but maybe you was going to have a good time because you got a good scalp massage. So chill out, homie. That weight line to grow out, I think, sooner or later. You know what I'm saying? So that shop, I was actually in between the two best barbers in the shop too, and it was just like the worst thing that can happen to any young barber is be put between the top two barbers in the shop, because his clients are never going to be satisfied and they're going to always get got. So I was always getting poached. But they taught me how to cut, man. They taught me how to cut. And that's what I always suggest people to do now, man. All young barbers, bro. You got to get into a shop with nothing but killers. If you want to become a killer, you got to get into a shop with killers. Can't be in no shop being the best barber.
Got to. You got to be in a room where you can grow. And it seemed like a lot of growth took place in that barbershop.
Yes, sir. With David Sheriff and Tyson. And my boy Chris Whitmore was in there. My boy Bam was in there. My boy Mark Ivy was in there. It was just a lot of good barbers, man. A lot of good brothers who were just men who cared about their kids, who cared about their craft. You know what I'm saying? They may not have cared about time as much, but they cared about their craft. They cared about their clients. They cared about what they wanted, you know, what was really on their minds as far as like just life. So, you know, made me kind of care more about barbering too. So it stepped my game up a whole lot.
That's what's up. Now, how long did you stay at this barbershop?
That barbershop, I was there for 2 years.
And what made you leave?
And then I went back. Well, at the time, I had gotten pretty good, and it was just at the time their shop was just having a lot of turmoil, and the booth rent, like this was like I said in this was in 2007, 2008, right before I'm about to get married, and bro, it was just like there was so much turmoil going on in that shop, like the two best barbers were beefing all the time. You know, they were throwing money on the floor, challenging each other. I was, you know, stepping on a couple of those dollars and sliding them, you know, to the back while they argued a little bit so I could make sure that I could pay my booth rent. But nonetheless, it was cool, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But it was like they were like, you know, always battling, and then it was just a high booth rent. At the time, it was $225, and that's in '08. You know what I'm saying? That was $225 a week, and I was like, what, in between the two best barbers? Like, I don't know how I even lasted 2 years. So, yeah, bro, I just finally decided to go back to the stylist that I was working with, start being the barber in her shop, and have a better, you know, financial deal. But sometimes a better financial deal ain't a better move. So
now I'm gonna kind of backtrack a little bit. I know you mentioned the time that you got married. Now, during this whole process, were you with your wife during this time, or how did that come into play?
Yeah,
did she witness this?
My wife has literally been there from when I made it back to Atlanta. She was a part of it, like the church, like me getting clientele at the church, you know, me going to Morehouse. Like I said, I didn't have no car, so she had a car. She would pick me up from, you know, like she lived on the other side of town, come pick me up just to drop me off close to my side of town. So it would just be like, she's always been that good backbone and support. And I think that she's actually been the architect of a lot of dope things that has commenced from my career as a result, by just being, you know, a great support, a great organizer, you know, being a visionary in her own way. So, you know, she's actually built me more than I would say most of these barbershops.
That's what's up. So how did she feel when you went back to the stylist that you were working for previously?
You know, she was just like how any other wife of a barber, you know, she just wants you to not have to talk about it every time you come home. So she wants you to be in a nice environment to where you're not always mad about what happened, you know what I'm saying, at the shop. So, you know, the young lady, I learned a lot from her as far as technically, you know, like just how to run your book, how to run your business, how to kind of like be able to, like, you know, just have that mouthpiece to like really sell yourself, and, you know, really be a part of like being, you know, interested in always perfecting your craft. So, you know, something I gained from her. But, you know, my wife has always been supportive of every move, because every move that we've made has been like, what you think about this? I think that's good, but this part and this part, you know, we just need to know that we need to watch out for that. So, you know, every move that we've made or that I've made has been a we made. You know what I'm saying? So that's how I kind of give it.
Now, how long did you stay at the salon?
I stayed at the salon for about, that was about 3 years. And then from there, I actually I went to this shop called Salon Ramsey. This barbershop called Salon Ramsey. And that's kind of when I kind of blew up from there. Now,
when you say blow up, what does Salon Ramsey provide for you to blow up?
All right, well, I guess like I said, every shop that I had went to, like, built me. I was in a shop that made me be aware of my equipment. Then I went to a shop that made me be aware of my skill. Then I went to a shop that made me be aware of my environment. Then, I got to Salon Ramsey, and all those things were on my mind, and that no matter who shop I was in, that I would always maintain some type of control in those senses. It's like, it had to be a fly spot. It had to be finished. It had to be, I worked in a lot of shops that were unfinished. You know what I'm saying? Unfinished shops, you know what I'm saying? So going to Salon Ramsey at the time, man, it was just cool because, like, Salon Ramsey would do stuff like, okay, so pretty much Salon Ramsey was is owned by this dude named Ramsey. And so started the shop. He had like 5 shops. He was actually about to retire, so he actually passed me half of his clients. And at the time, I just cut off his clients, and one of his clients just so happened to be Nas. And I cut Nas one time. He decided, he went to another barber the next time, hated that barber, and came back to me. And from there, it was just kind of like history. Like, and that was 2010, I believe. Yeah, 2010. So 2010, started cutting him. And then it just, like I said, it just was like, it started catapulting because it was just the quality of people I was cutting. I wasn't just cutting just anybody. I was cutting, if I was cutting, just anybody, it was the best of just anybody. You feel me? It was just like a guy who was on his way to becoming something great. On his way to becoming, like, he was an assistant one day, but he was on his way to becoming a dope manager in 2 years. He was, you know what I'm saying? And that's how I kind of built my clientele.
Movers and shakers.
Movers and shakers, even before they had anything to move or shake.
So did a lot of that clientele come from Nas, or did it just come from Salon Ramsey's?
The good thing about it is, like, from Tony's, I had a very solid, because I started picking up the pace and starting to get, acclimated with the skill. So I took about a good 40%, like maybe like 40% of my clientele. Then when I was to, the next salon, it was about another 20%, and then right before I got to Salon Ramsey, I gained like another 10%, and then the rest was Salon Ramsey. But the people in that circle, like 1 or 2 people out that circle, would put me in contact with 1 or 2 people in another circle that was even stronger. You feel me?
Yeah.
And then it just kind of like grew from there. So then, at the time, Nas was living in Atlanta, and with him living in Atlanta, one of his homeboys was Chris Webber. So him and Chris Webber were cool, so I was cutting Nas, and all of a sudden, Chris Webber, he was growing this ugly fro. And he's like, can you give me a lineup? Excuse me. And I actually gave him that lineup, and from then it was just kind of locked in. That whole year, that season, he had that ugly fro, so I never told anybody that I was his barber for that year. So then the next year, that's when he allowed me to do the infamous Webber cut.
So what inspired you to do the infamous Webber cut?
All right, so this is how that Webber cut came about. Now, everybody was kind of like, was kind of like the curl sponge was coming up really strong. New Dread was already like really in the industry killing, and then curl sponge started coming around, was doing good. And so that curl top thing was starting to pick up, but it really wasn't out just yet.
Yeah.
And so he was like, yo, bro, I'm about to cut the fro off. I want to go just straight waves, go low. But I was like, nah, bro, because like he had that type of hair where it was like a really, really big, thick fro. So like if I was to cut his hair, wave length, it would have been spacey because he hadn't combed it from the scalp in a long time. You feel me?
Yeah.
So I was like, nah, let me just cut your hair down lower, and we can see what happens. So I was like, I talked him up to like, yeah, I want to do this haircut. I want to do a little fade on the sides. I want to do a drop fade. And then like, I don't know. I was like, I just want to do a drop fade. I don't know why, bruh. I did this drop fade, but I didn't have the proper guard. So I had just came back from a Kenny Duncan class, and it just so happened to be that clipper over clone class that he was, doing so popular. Him and Tone McGill were doing really good.
Yeah.
And bro, I kind of like broke this haircut down to where it's just like I broke the sides down, strong enough to where the line was poignant. But then I brought the hair to where it could be really, really curled, really, really tight. And then I just had the fade just on some other stuff. And then that's when I introduced some fibers pretty much to the industry. And I mean, there's a lot of great people who are already doing it, but like as a whole, cats who were fibering or doing fibers was keeping that to themselves.
Yeah.
And so like, I kind of put that joint on him because he couldn't take no razor, and you know he had that Stacy line, so I kind of hit him with them fibers, and he was like, yo! And from there on, it was just like the haircut heard around the world, bro. Twitter went crazy.
So how did that haircut elevate your career?
So the Nas thing elevated my career, but because Nas had already had such a dope, iconic cut, you know, most barbers who cut Nas, like, you just nice once you start cutting Nas. Like, you're not whack getting to Nas. You know what I'm saying? So, like, once you get to Nas, you can cut. So it's just like holding on to a strong tradition and making sure that you maintain that mantle. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that did pretty well. But that Weber cut, to see him on Tuesday nights, every Tuesday night, bro, with that cut, it was crazy because every Tuesday night after I would cut his hair, like, I would literally just go on Twitter, just like before Instagram was like really, really popping. Twitter was like really strong with it. And I would just go on Twitter and just be like, bro, I would just see like who was cutting Weber's hair, who cut that Weber hair. But I mean, it was just like random, like, bro, it was like the craziest thing. So just started cutting his hair, and every Tuesday night he would be on there, man. And it was just like the commentators were starting to make comments about like how sharp his haircut was. So like, yeah, I'm watching like NBA fan night, and I'm like, yo, they talking about that cut. Oh my God, that cut, yo, bro, it was just like, it was just surreal to be seeing that your haircut is being talked about by commentators when they should be talking about, you know, who didn't hit that game winning shot. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it was just like, wow. So it was just cool to see that, you know, that's some work that I had done. And, you know, this is something that I had spoken from the beginning. Like, when I first started cutting hair, man, I was always, you know, in the mindset of wanting to be luxury, wanting to be high end, wanting to be like even high end for the regular guy. Like, I always wanted to get I wanted to cut people's hair like I wanted my hair to be cut. So I've always just wanted to always have that type of like high end feel, and then with knowing that is what my goal was, I always knew that would entail, you know, sooner or later higher profile clients, celebrity clients, you know, people who are on television often, or who can get your work seen very often. You know what I'm saying? Not saying that they're different from my everyday clients who handle my everyday life, my beautiful life. You know what I'm saying? Ask me daily. But like, it was just a dope thing to be able to see like how your haircut can be spread around and just really be talked about in a positive light. It's just something that was just beautiful. So I think that Weber cut though really just took my career to the next level, because that's right when, like I said, curl sponge was like popping, new dread was popping, you know, all that stuff was just really, really coming to a head. But like, nobody was really like, it was just a perfect time. Like, Instagram was just popping at the right time. I was taking high quality pictures just at the right time. That fiber came out just at the right time. I was getting my haircuts on TV just at the right time. So it was like all this stuff was just happening just at the right time. And that's just how I feel about the industry, man. Just for all those who are out here listening, like, your career is going to have its moment when it's the right time. And that's just how you got to keep looking at it. Like, if you're in the place that you don't want to be right now, as far as like that's in your control, change it. But if you're in a place to where you're just having to learn and like just having to kind of soak up your environment, soak that thing up, because when it's time to use those tools, like I said before, learn how to use that skill, learn how to use that time, learn how to utilize that environment, you'll be ready to go. All day.
Now, your Barberstar brand, when did you start that, and how did you come up with that brand, Barberstar?
Oh man, okay. The Barberstar brand. Well, the Barberstar brand started. I think it started back my second tour with Nas, my second international tour with Nas. The first time I went, I was just like super wide-eyed and bushy-tailed. Like, yo, wow, this is just remarkable. Like, being in Norway was just crazy. Being all over Europe was just remarkable to me. I never thought that I would be somebody who was traveling around the world. So then the second time when I saw that it was, you know, might become a trend, I was like, you know, I want to kind of like, I need to capitalize on this. And I know that people aren't necessarily like always as apt to kind of like just get behind somebody's name, because, you know, ain't nobody really trying to wear nobody's name on their back unless it's a actual fashion designer. So, you know, I was like, man, there needs to be something that kind of represents barbers, you know, when they on, you know what I'm saying? And I was just like, you know, I was at this kiosk in Cumberland Mall. My wife and me were getting prepared for me to go, like I said, to Europe. And I was at this kiosk and I was just trying to think of like some type of design, some type of like catchphrase or some type of thing. And the dude had on his screen barbershop, like the barbershop, the movie, like text. But then like the way that I looked at it, I kind of looked at it fast. So it looked like all I saw was like the S, and then the H almost looked like a T and an O to me for some odd reason, or a T and an A to me for some odd reason. So I was like, Barberstar. Oh, snap. But I was like, heck yeah, because I was like, yo, there's movie stars, there's rock stars, there's, there's all these other types of stars. I was like, yo, there have to be barber stars, like, cats who have gotten to a whole nother level in barbering, not just necessarily I can cut better than everybody, but where it's like you inspire other barbers to be dope, you know what I'm saying? And that's what the Barberstar movement is about, man, just inspiring other barbers to be dope in every way, whether that be marketing, whether that be personal development, whether that be your own cutting, whether that be, your family life, you know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of us be like neglecting that, you know what I'm saying? Whether that be your, whatever it may be, like a Barberstar is just one of those guys who's just dope and just represents barbering very, very well. Barberstarring whomever, you feel me?
Yeah.
Mr. Edwards,
I could dig it.
Barberstar and Mr. Edwards.
I can dig it. I can dig it.
Yeah.
That's some cut game. I hope y'all soaking this up. Marcus Harvey is dropping some
Soak it up
heavy
like a
cut
biscuit.
game.
Soak it up like a biscuit, baby. Sop that thing up. You don't want that thing to them greens. You don't want your green juice to get to your meat. You gotta get that biscuit and sop that thing up. Sop that game up, baby.
Now, Marcus, you a true Barberstar. You had your own sitcom. Now, how did that come about? Ghost Brothers.
Man, timing, bro. Timing. Barbering, like I said, barbering has been the evidence of every great thing that's happened for me. Like every great situation in my life, I got to write stand-up comedy for Rodney Perry, and that came out because he became a client of mine and knew that I was funny, saw my stand-up, and was just always rocking with me. So I was able to write on 2 seasons of a TV show, being the head writer. I was able to go on tour with Cedric the Entertainer, do stand-up with him because I was a barber. I was able to go like all over the place just because I was a barber. So it's just like, man, it's Barberstar life, bro. It's just beautiful because it's like it allowed. Okay, so the way that I got Ghost Brothers is like my boy was me and him were working on a sitcom pilot together a long time ago, probably like in 2000 and actually 2010, right around the same time I started cutting Nas. So I was doing like this sitcom pilot because I was really into my stand-up at that time. So I was doing it with my homeboy who's actually on the show named Dalen. Dalen is the other member, one of the other members of Ghost Brothers. So long story short, I was cutting Dalen's hair. He's like, yo, bro, I'm about to move to L.A. I got this idea, this concept that I want to do. I'll hit you up when I get out there, and everything starts making moves. So my homeboy was out there. He, I'm just his barber. He probably just just said that. But me and him were really cool because like I said, we had did the sitcom together. He saw my comedic chops, and I was cutting his hair so he could hear my comedic chops every week. So long story short, man, like a year or 2 later, he's like, yo, bro, the show about to get picked up. I was like, what show? He's like, man, you remember that show I was telling you about? I was like, nah. He's like, the show about black dudes hunting ghosts. I was like, bro, you ain't never told me that. Because I would have stopped you right there. Because the only ghost I believe in is the whole that goes robo shot top. Hey, babe, shake it to you. I don't even know if that's a real term, but it felt good.
Yeah.
So long story short, though, man, like, he was just like, bro, like, man, like, yeah, man, this show's about to happen. So went through a couple of interviews, Skype interviews, messed around and got to go out and do this, got to go do a test run. I had never ghost hunted in my life. Got an opportunity to ghost hunt for the first time in Savannah, Georgia. I was pleading the blood of Jesus. Man, I pled so much blood of Jesus. He needed a transfusion, dog. You know how much blood of the Jesus you have to call on when he needs a transfusion? Then he was like, yo, bro, please don't call in no more times. You should even came if you're going to call me this much. You should even came, dog. So long story short, man, it just kind of popped up. And, like, the crazy thing about it is, like, with the show allows me to, promote the Musa Lair because the show always starts off in the shop. So it's just dope, man. Like, barbering is my life, bro. I can't take what I've been for 12 since I was 12 out of my life. You feel me?
Yeah. Now, You brought up Musa Lair. Give us the backstory on Musa Lair, when you establish it, and just how it's doing.
Okay. Well, Musa Lair started a while back ago with the Barberstars. The Barberstars are actually once I became the Barberstar, I was like, I wanted to, like I said, it's something for all dope barbers. Not for all barbers. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's not for all barbers. It's for all dope barbers who try and get onto a whole nother level. So that's when actually I did a class with Todd on iCut Pro. He came to Atlanta and did a class with me. And when I was doing the class, my boy Hawk the Barber Prodigy was a young Hawk the Barber Prodigy back in the day, and came to the class, and me and him just clicked. Got him. Met up with my boy Tyreek. He reached out to me from Syracuse. Got him. I had my OG Q, who taught me a lot of like the ins and outs of the game. I brought him, and we went into a suite, and we called it the Musa Lair. I was getting my hair cut one day by Q, and there was this picture that said Mansa Musa, and it was like, I was like, Mansa Musa, and it said Mansa Musa was the wealthiest man of all time, $400 billion. So at that moment, I literally got in my phone, looked up who Mansa Musa was, and I realized he was a West African king, where $400 billion controlled, gold and salt, which is wealth and preservation, in any type of spiritual sense, and was very key in his generosity in spreading knowledge. Started the University of Timbuktu while he was on his Mecca pilgrimage, and was always just willing to share knowledge and even willing to share his treasure. So I wanted to make sure that the most powerful and most wealthiest man of all time, his legacy wasn't just about his wealth, but it was about his generosity. So we came up with the Musa Lair. A lair is a place of resting, of dwelling. So Musa, it means king, so a king's dwelling pretty much. And what we have at the Musa Lair is an art gallery. Like I said, it's a place full of riches. So whether that be art, literature, cultural conversation, all those things play into the part of the Musa Lair, and that's why we kind of put ourselves into that sense, So we just try to make sure that we have a more well-rounded, environment to get cuts. You feel me?
Yeah. So how was it working with all those major players that you just named?
Well, it was cool because at the time, wasn't nobody major really at that time. So it was just like, it was cool because at the time, like, my popularity had like really kind of gotten to like, I think I was like around 30,000 followers at that point, 30,000 to 40,000 followers at that point. And so like, it was just cool to know that like, I would never say that I put like, you could put somebody on, but it was just dope to see how your influence could help other people get light who were already ready to shine. You feel me?
Yeah. So
it wasn't like, it was like I was able to help them, one, refine their game and refine their cutting, just like, the barbers, before me who were able to help me. Like I said, the Chris's, the Dave Sheriffs, the Tysons, the Chris Whitmores, all those people, who were able to kind of like instill in me like detail, like attention to detail. Even the Karens, like who was the assistant for it. Those people like allowed me to figure out I have to pay it back. So long story short, man, like it was just cool because one, they were all receptive to kind of like learning, and all receptive to kind of like, trying to figure out how they could grow as not only just, barbers, but just as men, and really just figure out how to grow their business. And it was just cool to be in a situation, it was a very unique situation where like, everybody was just like on point with what they wanted to do with their career. And then, maybe the ones who weren't, they weren't, but like you could see who was really about that Barberstar life. And those are the boys, them grown men, Hawk the Barber Prodigy and Tyreek Navarre. You know what I'm saying? Like we do movie sets, we do television sets, we do the NBA, we do we do any and everything that's in Atlanta, across the country, man. We do all-star weekends. It's like, bro, we've done any and everything in this industry that it could offer. Done classes, shared our knowledge. Continuously, we're going to be doing more classes. Going to be doing more educational situations, and it was just cool to just be in an environment where, like I said, you're the best. You feel like you could be the best barber if you focus that day. You feel me? And if you're not focused that day, then that dude right beside you is going to be the best barber that day, or that dude beside him is going to be the best barber. And it was just cool, like our first week going in there, we was like, yo, we're gonna have a trophy for who killed the week. So it was just like we started off just really on the mindset of like, yo, we got to get to it. You feel me?
Yeah.
And we got to it, bro.
Now that's what's up. So what's next for Marcus Harvey in the next year, next 3 years, 5 years? What's next coming up?
Now that I've lost all this weight, I'm gonna really go after my dream and become a stripper full time. Thank the Lord. Nah, bro. Nah, man. I think right now it's just more so growth and development. I got we got the summit coming up on October 15th through the 18th in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, where we're bringing the top influencers and barbershop owners in the country. We're all gathering and coming together and just learning, how to become better leaders, how to become better owners, how to become better, just individuals. So that's going to be dope. We got a lot of, like I said, Barberstar Education Academy. We call the Master's Program. We got the Master's Program coming out pretty soon. Me and my wife, we keep doing dope things. Our daughter's going to keep growing.
Yeah. Congratulations on that.
Thank you, man. Thank you. What else? We got we got a lot of stuff. More television coming up for myself. More from the Musa Lair. Just dope things coming to your way, bro. Just keep watching your boy, the Marcus Harvey, on everything. The Marcus Harvey, on everything.
Now, if it was one word to describe you, what word would that be?
One word to describe me? Shoot, dope.
Now, why is that?
Dope. I'm comfortable with my skin, man. We all have our days, but like for the most part, man, when I have my moments, I always lean back to knowing like really what God placed in me, and I feel like nowadays, like with social media and how things are now, like everybody's so venomous. You sometimes try to hide what's good in your life, but bro, man, like I ain't hiding that joint no more. I feel like if I live a dope life, why would I not want to share it with people? Why would I not want to inspire? It's just like I'm trying to start the trend of happy flossing.
Now, why do you feel, due to social media, everybody venomous? Break that down for us.
Okay, so let me not say everybody, because that's a total terrible argument point.
Yeah.
Not everybody, but I would say that most of us are, and I say us because we've all fallen victim to it. Like, when you're in your lowest point and you see people shining, doing good, like sometimes that just makes what you're not doing and what you could be doing feel like, dang, I'm not doing nothing. But what I want us to all realize is that, man, there's so much room for everybody to be so exotic in what they're doing nowadays, man. Like, there's not just one way to do anything no more. You feel me? There's not just like my one of my mentors tells me, like, for every rule there's a rule that says F that first rule.
Yeah.
And that's real, man. Like my mentor used to be like, yo, Marcus, you need to just focus on comedy, or you need to just focus on barbering. You can't do both. And then he started seeing that how both of them would be, like we're intertwined. And he's like, yep, that's one of them rules where it says another rule says F that rule.
Yeah.
And it's just like, one thing is I see now is like it's hard for people to have esteem now, because like, people might take it the wrong way, as if you're like really trying to make them feel lower than themselves. It's like, nah, man, I'm really happy with me and really happy with what's happening in my life, and really happy with what's happening, period. Like, who would have guessed that a dude from Morristown, Tennessee, Gwinnett County, was going to be in Europe, in Paris, was going to be in Tokyo, was going to cutting hair, knowing that there's other barbers who are just as dope, if not doper.
Yeah.
What makes me different, bro? I know what makes me different, but I thank God that I have some differences, and then I recognize those differences that we all have.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And the Cut Game Radio Show, we gonna celebrate all of the dope artists, whether you've been in this game forever, whether you're a legend, and whether you just new and just really doing it. We celebrating all the artists within the Cut Game, especially the unique artists. Marcus, you very unique, so I thank you for coming on the Cut Game Radio Show and sharing your story. Like you said, one word that describes you is dope, and that's what you brought today. We always ask every guest that comes on the show, if there was a code of conduct for barbers, what code would Marcus Harvey add to it?
Love thy neighbor as thyself.
Oh, he went biblical on it, y'all. Break that down.
Love thy barber. Love thy barber like thyself. Any way that you wish another barber would treat you, treat that barber like that, and you will be treated like that. So anything respectful manners, like if you feel like whatever way you feel like you should be respected, you should respect other barbers in that same tone, if not more. Something that I'm even learning daily myself, man. Gotta continually grow.
Definitely.
Love thy neighbor as you love thyself. Like if you love you enough to always give yourself the benefit of the doubt and grow, you gotta love them cats enough to give them the benefit of the doubt and grow.
Definitely. Now, throughout hearing your story, I'm trying to remember, when did I meet you, and when did we, have a professional relationship where I can groom some of your clients when they're in LA? I'm trying to think throughout the timeline that you shared with us today. But man, I appreciate you for reaching out to me and having me taking care of your clients when they're in LA. I appreciate it, Marcus. Got a chance to groom Nas about a dozen times, and it's always, I'm a Nas fan, so it's dope to actually put the Nas haircut on Nas. It's just dope.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah,
like,
that's all.
You cut Nas's hair, there's a code that only Nas barbers know about. You feel me?
Yeah, that cut game. So right now I'm gonna give you the stage. Let them know where they can find you, but drop something heavy on them real quick. Drop some cut game on them real quick, and then let them know where they can find you. Let them know where they can reach you.
Okay. So dropping some cut game. I would say, barbers, man, embrace you're different. You're different. Yeah. Embrace you're different. Like whatever makes you different as a barber, whatever makes you unique as a barber, embrace that. Don't necessarily embrace what you see other barbers doing. Embrace who you are. If you're a fun-loving guy, embrace that. If you like Frank the barber does, and Garrett do. Like if you're a very professional barber, like I Cut Pro and Yeezy, right? Like do that. If you're a talented barber, like a creator, do that. Like just be who you are, and really let the people know who you are. And in turn, they will never turn away, because you will always be true, because you're just yourself. You know what I'm saying? You're not being anybody else. You guys can follow me on all my social media platforms. I just learned that term today, social media platforms. Instagram, Twitter, the Marcus Harvey, Facebook, Marcus Harvey. You can go to my website, the Barberstar. You can go to our shop's website, the Musa Lair. You can go to, also, if you guys hear this podcast prior to, please don't be the only one who's not coming to the summit on October 15th through the 18th, because there's only really 20 seats or 20 beds available. So if you're not one of those 20 people, when you see what's going to happen with this situation, you're going to kick yourself forever. So in order to not kick yourself, do the right thing to yourself and go to the summit. October 15th through the 18th, Gatlinburg, Tennessee.
So make sure y'all check out Marcus Harvey work on his social media platforms at the Marcus Harvey. And if y'all can make it out to his summit on the 15th, please do so. And make sure y'all stay elevated, stay motivated, stay on your jet fuel. Like, share, follow the Cut Game Radio Show. Check us out on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and our YouTube show. Make sure y'all leave a review, because that helps with our ranking with iTunes. It just helps with the growth. So y'all stay up, stay elevated. Cut Game Radio Show. We out.
That concludes our show. Please join us next week as we chop up game and share secrets to success on the Cut Game Radio Show.